No,
I'll let you
a little bit late. Okay. All right, at 6:07, I'd like to get started. Before we get going, on behalf of the board, I want to extend our condolences for the loss of your father.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the joint Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and Sewer Authority for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. We're joined tonight telephonically and by Zoom.
No, this is Teams.
Teams, okay, Microsoft Teams. So I'd ask everyone to mute your device when you are not speaking. When you do speak, to announce your name for clarity of the record. Agenda item 2 is a 15-minute public comment period. Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to speak? Is anybody on? You think?
So everyone online, then in person or? Yeah.
Correct. See, all right, moving on. If people do arrive and want to speak, we can reopen agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 3, the approval of the minutes of the November meeting, November 28th, 2023 meeting, which were provided earlier this evening. And I hope everyone's had a chance to read through them. And I will accept the motion to approve the minutes if everyone's had a chance to read them.
I'll make that motion.
All right, thanks, Bob.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael. All right, is there any questions or comment on the minutes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries.
Thanks.
The minutes are approved. All right, moving on to agenda item 4, we have 3 packages provided in your board package. First one is the financial update. Are there any questions or comments on the financial update? I don't think I had any. All right, hearing none. The next is the leadership team up template. Are there any questions or comments on the financial team template?
Yeah,
Okay,
Which side, right?
10-4, all right. That's not on the agenda, it's the passing out of sodas, but.
Yes.
It's not a soda, it's a press.
I'll just take care of it.
That's all right. All right, hearing none. Hearing none.
Investment.
Also in your board package was the timeline for the budget schedule. Are there any questions or comments on the budget schedule for 2024?
Those also include the finance and committee meetings, which are going to have the budget drivers for gas and electric starting next week, and then the following week for water, sewer, and the admin budget. So, and that all are welcome to join in those deep dive budget discussions.
All right, thank you, Chris. All righty, then we'll move on to agenda item 5, which are information and updates we have before this evening. The first is the Neighborhood Assistance Act update, and for that, I'll turn to Chris Ryan.
Yeah, this is something we do every year around this time. The Neighborhood Assistance Act program that is run by the state of Connecticut's Department of Revenue Services allows us to make payments to fantastic local nonprofits in lieu of paying a portion of our gross receipts tax. As you recall, we don't pay gross receipts tax on our natural gas anymore. We do pay a considerable amount of gross receipts tax on our electricity that we purchase. So there's a process that organizations can go through. We evaluate them very closely, and then we're able to make terrific contributions to them to help with efficiency projects during the course of operations. This helps them conduct their operations more efficiently because it's money they don't have to take from their operating budgets. It allows us to have a stronger connection with these terrific organizations. So we are delighted this evening to have Jillian Corbin from St. Vincent de Paul Place, which will receive $75,000, and she can give us a quick update. And then Reagan from the Norwich Historical Society, $55,500 for the David Greenleaf House, which is adjacent to Leffingwell Inn, which will be a terrific addition to what will be a terrific addition to the city as time goes on. So if you two could just share a little bit about your programs, what we're going to be supporting, and if the board has any questions, I know that they'll be able to answer them. We also want to thank Laura and her team. They always take care of the administrative part of this very easily, figuring out the right time for us to issue these checks. Sometimes we've done them over a couple of months, sometimes we do them all at once. But she and Kathleen Cutler always do a fantastic job, and it's a true team effort. It always works out very well, and we're delighted with the outcomes.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Is it okay to do it from here?
Sure.
Okay. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm even more grateful that I've been here many times and have, St. Vincent de Paul has been a recipient to the Neighborhood Assistance Act. Like many nonprofits, there's barely enough money for the budget, never mind capital improvements. We are in a 100-year-old building that needs a lot of repairs. It's got really good bones. And I tell you, every step of the way, I mean, I've been there since we went in 2012. Norwich Public Utilities has been there. They've been there for when we basically were browned out when we got there. They helped us get new transformers. You guys have done everything with us. I mean, you've been part of our family, which makes us be able to serve the community better, just like Chris said. It's amazing what you guys have done and allowed us to be able to do so that we can serve the community better. I'm so excited to say that this money is not going to go for HVAC. Why? Because the HVAC is installed, and it's because of the Neighborhood Assistance Act that you guys have afforded us. We now have fresh, clean, cool air in the dining room and kitchen. It's so lovely. It's so nice to have a cooling center and a warming center that actually has the temperature to match it. So we thank you so much for that. This money is $75,000 is going towards the windows on that level. So now that good air is not going to seek out. We're going to get energy efficient windows. We have a record number of people that we're serving. I'm sure that you guys know that by the people that are asking for energy assistance. Our unsheltered folks have doubled this year. A lot of people are struggling with affordable housing and food insecurity. As you know, when you go to the grocery store, there's tons of price increases. So I just thank you all so much for really being committed to the community and always helping, whether it's advice or just just coming over, or of course in this way financial matters. So thank you very much.
I'm short, so I'm going to stand. You'll see me behind these chairs. Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Regan Viner. I'm the Executive Director of the Norwich Historical Society. I'm thrilled to be here and just so grateful for NPU's support of our project. NPU has supported many of our past historical projects through the Neighborhood Assistance Act in the past, and I'm so pleased to be here again. Thank you guys for your investment in Norwich's history. So I just wanted to quickly tell you a little bit about the building that we're working on. So we have a partnership with the Leffingham House Museum that owns the David Greenleaf House. It was built in 1763, and for, gosh, as long as I've been alive, and I've been in Norwich for my entire life, that building had been a blighted, dilapidated space. It was vacant for many years and just not in use in any sort of sense. So the Society Founders of Norwich, who own and operate the Leffingham House Museum, had purchased the property with the grand vision on wanting to make it as part of a campus for the Leffingham House Museum. The Greenleaf House is located at 2 Town Street, right next to Leffingham, so it was a natural spot to create this historic campus. So fast forward a couple of years to the Historical Society's involvement. We started a partnership with the Leffingham House Museum in 2018 with the goal of making that dream become a reality. So far we've received a lot of state funding through the State Historic Preservation Office, and we're thrilled to now have support from NPU through the Neighborhood Assistance Act on this project. We had a groundbreaking ceremony this past September for the project, and we're so pleased that Simone and Chris were able to join us for that wonderful event. And the goal is for this Greenleaf House to become the multi-purpose event space, the adjunct space to the Leffingham. The Leffingham House Museum is the historic museum, and the Greenleaf House, our plan is to make it handicap accessible. So that is our eventual goal for the space. I wanted to pass out a brochure, which just pass it to Sure. To everybody. You got it. That talks about the project, and of course that talks about some of the other initiatives the Historical Society is working on for the next couple of years. It's a front and back pamphlet, so please be sure to check out both sides. And I'd like to invite everybody, when we are hopefully finished with this building this time next year, to come to our ribbon cutting and that schedule. The building is officially online and ready to go. So thank you guys so much for your support and happy to answer questions.
All right. All right, well, thank you, Jillian and Reagan, and thank you for all the good work that you do in Norwich.
Can I ask a quick question?
By all means.
St. Vincent de Paul, I am the historical, terrific organization. I have a question about St. Vincent de Paul. And I grew up in the neighborhood of St. Joseph, so I know the school well. Are the upper floors used for anything?
So, we just got awarded a $1.7 million bond from the state to install an elevator. So, it will be used on the upper floors. So we're really excited. Right now, it's just used for storage. But,
Yeah.
in order to have more space, we need to put in an elevator. So, we are actually just chose the elevator company today. So
I mean, are you going to use 100% of the space then, or is it?
that's our goal, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot of ancillary services. We do a lot of access to healthcare, substance use disorder. Right now they're kind of in the hallways and outside the parking lots, and this will allow us to do that extra space.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm gonna ask Reagan real quick. So the house, this house you're renovating, I'm sorry.
We call it the Greenleaf House.
Greenleaf House. So I've driven past that 1,000 times, probably more than that, because I used to live on the corner of Butts Lane. And it looked like it was a wreck, and I'm sort of really glad that you're able to bring that back to life. So how was the inside of that house? Was it just not so great?
It was exactly what you would expect. It was
Okay.
essentially a shell. The house had been vacant for decades, and unfortunately, it had been stripped of all of its historic fabric. So one of the things that we're most excited about is bringing this once blighted building back online and making it look a lot better than it currently did for so many years. So we kind of were given a blank slate to work with, so to speak. We've been working closely with our partners at the State Historic Preservation Office to try to determine, what historical features have been removed and what can we add back in. So our focus right now is getting that lower basement level finished and functional and ready for use. Fingers crossed by this summer would be wonderful. To have that be the first space that would be open and ready for the public's use, with the plan of the second and the first floor, the street level floor, and the second floor would be later phases that we're working on as well to get that space online as well.
Okay. So you said it was built in, 1763. That was pre-revolution.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
exactly.
a few houses though. There's my neighbor across the street. His house was built roughly the same time. It's got the 6.5 foot ceilings and all that. Is this house sort of like that?
If you're talking about the Bill House, is that the one you were thinking about near Butts Lane?
It's right across from roughly 380 Washington. It's a greenhouse.
Yeah, so there is a house that's very similar. It's like almost a mirror image of this house. They were built similar time periods. So I would actually love to go inside of the house that is probably looking a little bit better than the Greenleaf House does right now to kind of get some inspiration as to what, historically it would have looked like. But right now I'm happy to take anyone in the building if you'd like. It is a bit of a interesting situation on the first floor. We've got a couple holes that we're working on patching, but the basement level is looking a lot better, as Simone and Chris can attest to being here in the fall. So I'm happy to give tours anytime. It's a fun building to talk about. Historically, David Greenleaf built the house, but he only lived there for about 4 years. He was a goldsmith. We think we might have found the forge where he probably made some of his material. But then he moved downtown, and it has had a series of successive owners since then. So we call it the Greenleaf House just because David Greenleaf built it, but that name is to be determined if that's what we want to stick with it moving forward.
Wow. Yeah. So make a very long story short, the house that we owned on the corner was built in, I think it was 1885 or something like that. And of course, the first thing you learn is that there's nothing in that house which is standardized. And everything you do has to be almost custom made.
Yeah.
So
That's
this one is going to be 100 years more than that. So yeah.
Yeah, we've had custom made windows for that first level, and especially the basement level that we're working on right now. So yes, it's proven challenging, but also very rewarding. We can have all these really fantastic features come together.
Yeah. It's looking great. So thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Well, that brings us to the CMAC update, which is myself. All right, so the CMEC board met on December 21st, 2023. It was a short meeting before the holidays, so real quick, the November Henry Hub price was at $2.72 per decatherm, which is $3.19 lower than the budget. Member residual energy cost for November was budgeted at $69.51. The actuals came in at $46.74, the LMPs were $37.86. Peak forward energy market prices for this winter are expected to be about $85 per megawatt hour, significantly lower than last year in 2021, where they were over 200, I believe, in 2021 for the winter months. Also, the forward capacity auction clearing price remained at $2 per kilowatt hour a month, just as CMEC had predicted before the sale of Pierce. Master dashboard member power cost with member return for November is $91 per megawatt hour versus the budget of $106 per megawatt hour. Regional competitors came in at 48% versus the monthly target of 22, which means that, in other words, CMEC wholesale electricity for November was 48% lower cost than our competition. Year-on regional competitiveness remains projected at 44% versus a target of 21. So a big year for us versus our competitors. And then also on January 9th via email, CMEC announced that the fuel cell energy has successfully brought the sub-base fuel cell to full capacity of 7.4 megawatts after a year of operating at reduced capacity of 6 megawatts. By achieving full capacity, the agreed to cost offset of $100,000 per month will go away, significantly reducing the project return. However, the project return is still expected to be slightly positive. So we knew that was going to happen, and they were successful, so that stipend we were getting goes away. But now the project is fully functional, which is probably good for fuel cell energy, because they were sort of in bad shape about 5 years ago. We hope that they survive, because they're the sole supplier for this project. And that's all I had. Are there any questions on the CMEC update?
I can just add one quick thing. In fact, I was just talking to Chris about this. The state of Connecticut had talked about and has relented, I guess, a little bit on mandating all electric cars by, I don't know, 5 years from now.
2035. Yep.
But at the request of Kathy Austin, we did an analysis of what would happen if we had 100% electric cars in Norwich, and we would need new substations, we'd need new this, do that, and it would be about 480, was it, $1 million?
465.
465. All right, thank you. And Groton did the same thing, and I don't know if the other smaller CMEC utilities did it or not, but it comes up either just Norwich and Groton or all of the utilities to about $1 billion of capital expenditure in order to accommodate 100% electric cars. And that was a discussion that we had at the Risk Management Committee of CMEC. And I think one of the observations was that no one talks about this. It's not an issue when people talk about cost of electric cars and the efficiency of electric cars and the availability of charging stations, but those seem to be the major issues. But this is a huge issue, and it's because electric cars added at the margin have no particular adverse impact on utilities. In fact, it's probably good. They use a little bit of electricity, we make a little bit of money. You do a 100% conversion, it is a massive capital expenditure. And I think the public doesn't know that, but it's something the Risk Management Committee talked about, and I think it's going to become increasingly a topic.
That was the #1 topic this morning in the legislative breakfast. And there's a high likelihood of a special session which will be addressing this. So there's going to be much more in the papers on this. Now, as a utility, we are 100% for green, clean energy. We would just like to have it happen organically so we can grow and get the revenue and continue to grow. When it's all at once, it's going to be a major impact for our customers. And in Norwich, where we have only 1% of our vehicles are electric vehicles, and we have over 50% rentals, it's obviously going to be a challenge because, you know, all of these apartments are going to have to put charging, or you're running very inefficient 110 chargers out on an electric cord out of the, you know, extension cord. That's not conducive when you have on-street parking for a lot of our customers. It's going to be a challenge. And electric vehicles are more expensive than conventional vehicles, and there's not a large used electric vehicle market right now. So once again, it's going to be much more of a challenge for our customer base.
Is that $1 billion?
Yes,
For the municipals, and then you have Eversource and UI also.
That's all the municipals
in
in the
Connecticut,
state?
yes. So that's Norwich, Groton, Bosford, Jewett City, and the two small
Norwalk?
ones in Norwalk, East Norwalk, and the third pack.
That's not even a lot of the state.
No.
6%.
So it's gonna be like 6%. It's gonna be like, wow, 17 times that much,
Yeah,
basically.
our number is a conservative number, and when we're looking at the future, we've got to
18 billion.
do it conservative.
You better wake up and find out what's going on.
And if every utility in America needs to do this quickly, price is gonna go up and the availability of stuff's gonna go up.
Won't happen.
No.
And we don't have the generation and the transmission to serve it right now either. So these growths that we're talking about are substation to house meter, not the infrastructure out in the system, which will impact wholesale costs.
So we have a call with the local legislators tomorrow morning, and we'll get a little bit more intelligence on this. But the belief is that by doing special session, that does not include public hearings. So now the legislature can act more on their own, more independently. And if you're starting a special session, the expectation is you'll come out with something, so you're not just wasting everybody's time. There's some discussion of putting together a study committee that would look at this more thoroughly over the next 2 years and then figure out what would need to be put in place. And then the real vote would then be in 2 years. So a lot of moving parts and an awful lot of questions to be answered, even in the short term, let alone between now and 2035.
If state and feds would like to pay for some new substations for us, that would not be the worst thing.
Great.
That would be a win-win, but there's a lot of people who need this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, well, as you know, I'm a big proponent of electric vehicles, but I am obviously conscious of costs associated with upgrading the electric grid and all the things here in town. So I did a calculation a while back. If you replaced all gasoline and all diesel fuel that we burn in this country every year with electricity, and factoring in the efficiencies of the motors and all that, I came up with 1,900 terawatt hours of electricity per year you would need to operate every vehicle that uses gas and diesel. And right now, our electricity generation capacity in this country is 4,100 terawatt hours. So it's almost 50%. That's, you know, that's a huge increase. But if you look at the electric energy capacity in this country, you know, ranked from 1950 to today, we added 67% to our capacity from 1980 to 2000. So it's been done before, but it's still a lot of power. Then you got to go upgrade all the copper all the way, you know, down. And then for the towns, they have to obviously do a lot to get all the electricity to your house, I guess. But let me just ask you a question. So I already have a 200 amp service. So I don't need to do anything with my house. My house has plenty of electricity. Does the street have enough electricity?
No, it does not.
Or is it the transformers
So
and then
that means
everything?
more transformers per customer. You know, right now, if we have, 15 customers on a transformer, it may be 5 customers or less, or significantly bigger transformers. We're changing our design standards on how we're serving new load. We're putting more individual transformers for houses.
Yeah, so the one thing that they talked about, it seemed like a few months ago, was having, what was it, time-based metering? So they had time of use metering, which is common in various parts of the country, just not here, or at least not for MPU. That's one way that you could mitigate it a little bit.
Yeah, because if everybody comes home from work, the lights go on in the winter, the chargers go on in the car when you pull into the garage. The peak is gonna be later and later. If the peak is not gonna be early afternoon, it's gonna be as, you know, as people come home and start charging all at once and turn your lights on.
Yeah, the only last thing I would say is that, I take exception to the idea of a prohibition. When everyone came out and said, "Oh, we're just gonna prohibit gasoline cars." All attempts to prohibit anything in this country usually end badly. Especially something that people have passion for. People are real passionate about their cars.
Yeah, some people have cars that are more than 100 years old.
Right, so you can ban incandescent light bulbs, and I think Sarah Palin had a little problem with that, but nobody else did. But you try to ban gas cars, people are gonna blow a gasket, so I think they should back off on that.
Yeah, if everyone put all CFLs in, you know, and you forced it, you know, now we got LEDs, you're gonna throw all the CFLs and the incandescents away from them. But if you go and buy a new box of light bulbs at the store, you're buying LEDs.
Right.
I mean, you're not, you know, you're not looking to save a nickel on a light bulb that's gonna save you dollars a year in costs.
Well, you know, one of the other things in conversion, there are roughly 280 million operating automobiles in this country. Annual sales of automobiles, new automobiles, is 13, 14, maybe up to $18 million, 18 million a year. So even if you did 100% of that 18 million, you've got a long way to go before everything is electric.
Right.
And you've also got the problem of cars, you know, people who are affluent buying new cars, people who are sort of below affluent buy first generation used cars, people who are poor buy second generation used cars. If you convert everyone in the first category to electric and everyone else has gasoline powered cars, that doesn't seem right to me, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I prefer, like you say, if it just happens.
Yeah.
A generic, let people buy.
Organic, if this works organically,
Organically, let people buy what they want.
we can adapt, get the revenue in and continue to grow our system. That's what we're pushing for.
So I'm sorry, just one other quick thing. CMEC has issued, I believe, or they're really about ready to issue an RFP for battery projects in the 5 of the MEU territories. So, and so presumably one of them is going to be in Norwich. And, you know, it could be a significant project in terms of storage capacity and tax revenue in all likelihood. It appears as though it's going to be a PPA system as opposed to, you know, ownership by CMEC, which may not be taxable locally. So that's just something we need to keep our eye on, I think.
Yeah. The RFP was issued early in, I think it was late last year, and it's already opened up. They're starting to review the results. We'll be hearing that in our CMEET. How do you CMEET? CMEET, which is our Energy Efficiency and Conservation Group. And so we're starting to hear how, you know, what they're going to be paring it down to the number of companies, and they'll do site selection on phase 2. But right now is getting the rate structure and the feasibility of the companies. Round 2 will be the actual site specific locations.
Okay, all right, I think Sean,
Sean is here.
maybe Sean's here. All right, let the minutes reflect that Sean has arrived.
Yeah, he's been on the meeting for quite a while.
Right, he was on, right, laws on. Let's hear it. All right.
Yes, sure.
All right, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, well, that brings us to the 2023 NCDC year in review, and for that, I will introduce Kevin Brown. Kevin, take it away. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Jeff, can you hear me out there on your end? Speaking to this. Okay. Good,
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, Kevin.
thank you. All right, so thanks for giving me this a minute or two or 20 to talk to you. I'm feeling somewhat compelled to start this with, hi, my name's Kevin and I'm an electrical vehicle owner. I'll also say.
Kevin?
Year in review for 2023. Forgive me if I get lost in thought because long story short, there's a lot going on. We've done a lot of things and there are a lot of things in play.
Arrow up or down?
Down.
Try left or right.
Left. Right.
Here, wait, try again.
Well,
All right,
there we go.
let's do
Okay.
this.
That'll work. Okay, so, I know you know the organization of us, but I just want to go over it briefly with you, talk about how we've grown a little bit in terms of the number of folks that are helping us fulfill the mission. I'm going to go back a couple of years briefly and just talk about a few things and show you a couple of interesting metrics that I stumbled across in the last couple of months. Then we'll talk about 23. We'll look at 24 priorities, and then I'll encapsulate all of that in what our budget looked like and I think needs to look like in the year to come. I'll get accustomed to this in just a second.
Just throw this guy down.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay, I'll try to stay right there. It might work from now on too. Yeah,
There you
okay.
go, okay, cool.
Okay. All right, so just briefly, you know, there was a council election, and so the membership of our board of directors has changed because of that. And so Stacy Gould, who was on the NCDC board, has been replaced by Sheila Hayes, and John Mancini has stepped up to be our treasurer, as Chris Jewell has stepped up to be the vice chair. That's really all I wanted to point out there on the board proper. Then in terms of staff, you know, when I first got here, I had Mary running Foundry 66, Leanne as the executive assistant, Devin as a consultant, and then Suki running Global City Norwich. What I noticed that I missed here is Suki has been replaced, and we'll talk about that a little bit, by Bobby Brayboy, and Global City Norwich is back in full function again. We've also added a community specialist, Lucas Kaiser. We've added the consultant who helps us manage and do the diligence on our projects using the American Rescue Plan dollars from the Norwich Revitalization Program. And we have a new bookkeeper, Patty McManus, is in semi-retirement right now, for those of you who do or know her. And Catherine Turkert is about 2 weeks into the job. And Mark is still plugging along as our general counsel. Lots of words. Bottom line, we are here to help the mayor and the city with economic development, which is everything from large business to small. The way I usually describe it is Carlos Ventura's barbershop down the road that started with 2 chairs and has 6 now, to an industrial park that currently has 0 people in it that we want to get tenancy into, as well as revitalizing downtown and the harbor and all other things. But what I want to highlight here is the second paragraph. Not everything we do results in a key performance indicator or a metric or a tax dollar or a utility dollar. A lot of times we find ourselves having to assist with managing relationships, be it with retaining businesses or with state agencies. And our effectiveness can also be measured in what we do when we can come alongside the mayor. We can come alongside the city council, or sometimes come alongside the folks here at NPU to get things done. And then that last line that's highlighted, we just want folks to understand that what we do at NCDC is fully transparent. And you know, in a town like Norwich, you kind of have to repeat that message over and over again from time to time. Here's that mission broken down into what we do. It spells the acronym BREAD: business retention, expansion, attraction, and development. Plus Global City Norwich, plus the Foundry 66 mission, all focused on this end of the spectrum on small business activity. So when I first, my first 6 months went by, this is kind of the tick list that I just kept adding to. And I realized as I just kept adding things that on any given day at NCDC, we could be touching 15 to 20 of these things in one day. And it went from being just sort of a recreational, list for discovery to the way that we started to manage our priorities. So this is the beginning of 2022, where we recognize that these top 3 are the main bread and butter of what we have to do. And all the other things, I wouldn't call them distractions, but they're just other things on the plate. And in fact, I tell my own team, it's hang-up criteria. If you're talking to me about the Bulletin Building lease and a cannabis operator calls, you're leaving the room where I'm hanging up on you. That's how we sort of live and die by these priorities right here. And you can see that from what was this sort of scattered list of what's going on today, you know, we started to prioritize them literally, and then new things would pop up, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that here in this Mercantile, Hale Mill, any number of things. What I want to show you is that in those first 2 years, so all of 21, all of 22, and you know, let's all not forget, I changed command in the military multiple times. When I took the guide on the colors for that unit, it didn't mean the unit was born on that day. There was a commander before me who carried it for 2 or 3 or 4 years before I did. So in no way am I saying that NCDC in the last 2 years has caused this, but this is important data for us to all recognize. It's a lagging indicator. It was actually published in September of 2023, and it's an index that aggregates the number of businesses open, the average wages of those employed, the number of employed, and the percent unemployment rate. It's an index, okay? So all of those things are indexed together on the year 2010, and it's measured year over year over year. It's done across the states, and Connecticut uses it to do it here for all 169 municipalities. What I want to point out is that since the depth of COVID, for the years that ended for the years 2021 and 2022, that ended in December of 2022, this is the rate of change of that index for all 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut, and Norwich is the #1 municipality with an over 40% rate. And you know, any of you statisticians in the room want, you know, interquartile range and 6 sigma left or 6 sigma right. I mean, here's kind of average rate of change, right? This bulk of folks right here in the middle. Here's an extreme outlier on the right, 6 sigma. We are the 6 sigma left sign of progress on this particular indicator that captures all those things. This other one shows that same data, but for the 20 most impacted by the pandemic. So this is every town in here. And disclaimer, I took out Woodstock and another one that had like 1,600 people because they had like a 60% growth rate because, I don't know, they brought McDonald's in or something and it doubled the economic revenue. This one is the 20 most impacted municipalities, and you probably can't see it from your seat, but it's southeastern Connecticut for the most part. And it just shows that those that were most heavily impacted, quite obviously had the most room to go, but it says that we made it back. Really, all of these southeastern Connecticut towns have made it back, but none has made it back more than Norwich right here. Same data point, just shown differently. So that's, you know, and the point here is that's not just any NCDC, that's the city. That is what's happening in this city, be it first order impact of NCDC or city staff planners or the chamber or NPU, or just the collective impact of what we're getting done here in the city. So that's going into 23. 23, same slide, different measures, right? But I just want to show you that going into the year, you know, we were talking about still running business boards to select small businesses that would benefit from the American Rescue Plan monies. We were working on this master plan for the business park, which we know has fizzled since we started on that particular approach to the business park. And we were still hunting down cultivators and retailers. I'll only go down to the top 10 here and then I'll keep moving. We thought that we might want to submit a grant to improve the waterfront, not just the marina, but the entire waterfront in downtown. We began work with the Yale Urban Design Workshop on conceptualizing how that small 1/10 of an acre lot at the end of Broadway could turn into something that might be welcoming and interesting to the downtown. We reset the Global City Norwich program. We started working on some small business assistance programs. We birthed the Envision Norwich 360 website a month or 2 prior to the calendar year starting. We had a little more diligent about our financial management efforts, and the Reed and Hughes building won a CIF award, and work started on that building. And then just a whole bunch of other things that we were tracking. So I'll go through those first 3, those ABCs, and talk about a few things on them in particular. All right, so across the whole program, both the specific Norwich Revitalization Program component part of the ARP spend, and a few special projects that we work on with the city manager and various agencies, we had just short of $4 million to allocate. And it was allocated across 16 small businesses and 4 special projects. And right now, it's about 98% obligated. That'll move. But today, there's about $59,000 left in that thing. I suspect as this next 6 months clicks by, some projects will fizzle and we'll gain some monies back into that. Probably no more than about $200,000, and then we'll quickly turn those and push them back out. But that's up against federal guidelines that say you must be 100% obligated for your American Rescue Plan dollars by the end of 2024. We're already at 98, so we got some room. If we were to have some funds turned back, that we'd be able to get them back out the door. The other interim final rule, put those words together. The U.S. Treasury interim final rule, whatever that is, interim final, says that the monies have to be spent by the end of 2026. Right now, we're at about 30% dispersed for projects that I'll show you here in a second, but we're well on path, I would suggest, by the end of the fiscal year, end of the calendar year, to be probably at around 70% and easily 100% spent by early 25. So we're doing okay there too. On the small business front, those 16 businesses that I talked about, that's about just short of $2 million of ARP monies, but it's $5.5 million in actual development, the public-private partnership. You know, for every dollar we put in, the business had to put in at least $1. But as you can see, the ratio is more akin to 2 to 1 on what we've gotten from them. On the special projects, a few of them, it's $21 million in development from about $2.1 million in ARP spend. That's a 9-to-1 ratio. We get 9 private dollars in on a project for every 1 federal ARP dollar we spend. Disclaimer, that does not include Forty Wisconsin, separate project, separate discussion, separate, issues that we're still working through, but not counted in this. We believe the last business board, where we bring together 5 businessmen and women from across the city of Norwich to review these applications and decide which ones merit American Rescue Plan dollars to be spent, will occur in March, at which point we'll close out the award phase. We'll either grant those remaining, or obligate, I should say, those remaining 59,000, or if we've got some more back in the till, put those in play as well. If we have to, we'll hold another one later, but our goal is to be done by March 24. And as I said, be complete with all of that by 24, maybe early 25. And then the rest of this year really is about site visits, compliance, making sure that, the trades are doing the job to standard, ensuring that we're getting invoices back for these grants so that we can be prepared for the ultimate federal audit in the year 2042 when they get their arms around all this ARPA money that they put out the door and do some ribbon cuttings. In the aggregate, just on the small businesses and 4 of the special projects, we're talking about 106 jobs and 88,000 square feet activated for a total of $23 million private to $4 million federal, or a close to 6 to 1 ratio. So that's not too bad. I'm not going to belabor these. These are the dashboards that we use to manage the project as the days and weeks tick by. I should point out that, in terms of oversubscribing to the program, we had 70 applications, which represented about 800,000 square feet across the city, and what would be $18 million worth of development. We just couldn't obviously approve and support all of those projects. This is the tracker, the project by project tracker. What I'll point out for you is this column here, historically disadvantaged. 10 of those 16 are historically disadvantaged communities: women, minorities, veterans, LGBTQ business owners, and everything else I've pretty much spoken to already. There they are. That's where we are. These all say pending, so you only see $440,000 out the door. That's not really true. These are imminent. So this is probably about $1 million right here out the door, and then a few $100,000 on a couple of the special projects. And as I keep saying, you see the rest of those are on track for completion in 2024 with enough flex that if they slip 3 months or 4 months, they're still likely going to close out by the end of the year. Not ARP, not more trivialization, but something that I want to make sure that you all understand we are also doing. The Community Investment Fund 2030 and forgive me for being redundant on this, but $875 million that the state bonded to put into the 50 most distressed municipalities in the state, and we're one of them. That's a clarion call that we should be chasing that committee, those dollars, and every opportunity as hard as we can, every time that we can. But there's no grant writer in the city of Norwich. There's not an assigned grant writer in the city of Norwich. And so we have found ourselves being the folks that organize this priority spreadsheet, convene all the stakeholders to make sure that we're tracking the right priorities, and then submitting grants that go after those priorities. So far, this is just a drawdown on that chart. In round one, we submitted the Reed and Hughes building and a Lower Broadway project, and we got an award for Reed and Hughes. Round two, we submitted the arterial road and infrastructure grant, $11.39 million for the business park, and the K Park Mill. The BPN award was awarded. We're the only municipality on the east side of the Connecticut River to get a grant in both of those first two rounds. In the third round, we put all our eggs in one basket, went after a waterfront grant at a time when the ownership of the marina was still in flux, and it made our application tenuous at best with the committee. So here in the last round in December, we submitted a second go at that waterfront, and that is before the committee right now, with an anticipated decision in early March as to whether or not we are successful in getting about 11.7 million for a variety of activities along the waterfront, not just the marina proper. Additionally, Deanna's office at Planning and Neighborhood Services submitted a $250,000 planning grant to do a highest and best use analysis of the Norwich State Hospital property. You know, this is another example of economic development in Norwich is a team sport. And we are forever cross-talking and crossing paths and talking to each other to make sure we're doing the right thing. Last thing on CIF, looking forward, we believe that by June, we'll be able to converge two different paths that have been underway for some time. And that is the Yale Urban Design Workshop that I told you as 23 started, we were focused on, is now done. They have created this garden terrace look to the Jubilee Park area where the beautiful mural is on the side of Castle Church. And we now have a property owner of the three properties on Lower Broadway, including the Fairhaven, right next to the park. And we are leaning into getting to the point of 30% design documents for something that refaces Lower Broadway by both bringing together the park rehabilitation, the Fairhaven rehabilitation to put about 20 units of affordable housing in there, and then finish out the two that are up on either side of Billy Wilson's. That's what we believe to be our next project for CIF, followed very closely by Fontaine Field, which of the $30 million in the master park plan is the project that queued to the top of all of those master park plan projects. And then a whole bunch of other things that are going to keep this process of CIF going all the way out until December of 2026, until the monies are exhausted. And somebody's got to do that work, and right now that's us. Just maps of all of the projects, be it funding you've got for the wastewater treatment plant, funding from the ARP program, private investments, and I just want to drill it down. There it is. That come down to Greater Downtown, and come down to the Chelsea district. And the real reason for this is I want to provide this to Kathy Austin and Darrell Wilson so that when they're telling their colleagues in the General Assembly, yes, Norwich is coming back at you for more CIF monies to improve this waterfront, improve that waterfront. It's because it's an investment in a whole bunch of other things that are going on. We got a lot of activity, a lot of investment, and we want them to see that this is just a part of that overall investment. Okay, that's all A. That's all American Rescue Plan and Norwich Revitalization kind of kludged together. Business Park, now known as the Ockham Industrial Center, formerly known as BPN. Right, Ockham Industrial Center. So we closed on the property right at the end of 22. So that was a 23, achievement, sort of crowning achievement to finally get under possession. Some of the local actions, we filed a condominium of 3 large portions of the property in July. We had the wetlands permit approved in July as well. We had to revise it. It was reapproved December 9th. And right now, literally right now, the Commission on the City Plan is convening to review our subdivision plan that we submitted that could have been approved on December 19th last, but was deferred to this evening's meeting. If for whatever reason that is not approved, we are still moving forward. We still have the property condoized, and we can still submit plans for an engineered road solution into and through those condos. That was a strategic plan all along to be able to do it that way. At the state level, we were awarded that $11.3 million grant. We've signed the financial assistance agreement. We should be able to draw on it beginning next month. And we've secured Cushman & Wakefield as our commercial real estate broker, rebranded to Ockham Industrial Center. And we were selected as one of 4 sites across all of the state of Connecticut to be listed on the Advanced CT's site selection program, whereby the state is saying, hey, developers, we want you to come and develop in one of these 4 places in our state of Connecticut. And I'll show you some screenshots of some of that stuff here in a minute. And now we're off and running and marketing the parcels. We've got a couple of folks that hung in there with us from the very beginning. A precision manufacturer from Texas, a rail-time manufacturer who specializes in green tech and composite. And between Cushman & Wakefield's efforts and really primarily this Advanced CT site select program, we've gotten 3 or 4 inbound cold calls, so it's working. And in fact, Thursday, we have a first call with a very significant user. Chris, it's a follow-up from that very initial.
Super user.
Yep, super user. And it's a very, very promising possibility. That's all I can say. You know what it looks like. There it is, just to show it to you again. Just in case any of you never saw it or didn't really understand or know it, this upper right, this is a market overview of spaces at 40,000 square feet floor plate and higher in Connecticut. And you can see that it's all up and down the I-91, I-84, 95 corridor. Here we are right here, and we're filling in a blank is the bottom line on that one. The Site Selection Magazine, it's an online magazine. I just got this sent to me today from John Bordeaux, the president of Advanced CT. They highlighted in this annual edition, Connecticut, the land of steady habits. And in it, there's an article about all of those sites that were in the site selection, and that's us. I won't read it to you, I won't make you try to read it, but that's us right there. And it talks in this portion of it about Norwich Public Utilities and access to affordable utilities with a large user rebate. And of course, obviously proximity to the state pyramid, which is a selling point. Cannabis. 5/8 Street, sweet spot, delayed development. I've been keeping Chris informed of this as we go, as we tumble through the quarters. Let me back up and just say, in general, across the state, cannabis has not met the expectations for the rollout that the state had anticipated. I don't think, frankly, any of us are surprised. You guys are in the business of transformers and acquiring them and placing them, and 24 Section 149 cultivators, all trying to build out between 50,000 and 175,000 square feet of cultivation space, does not meet the availability of transformers on the planet. So there's a lot of slowdowns, but there's no lack of commitment on the part of our partners out there at 5/8 Street. Right now, prognosis is second quarter. They're in there. They've done demo. They've done interior demo. They've fixed the roof. They're leaning into the project, but they're being transparent and saying revenues aren't going to start flowing till probably mid-year for them. The city has conveyed 6/8 Street across the way. I should say Capehart has. Let me try these words in order. Sweet Spot has conveyed 6/8 Street lot for the Capehart development because it's adjacent to that Capehart mill. And that's one of the other long-term CIF projects that we have on the radar. And then in the meantime, they've been supporting, they being Sweet Spot, supporting Global City Norwich and a few other social equity efforts across the city. From a retail standpoint, Zenleaf opened on 606 West Main. Right now, they're generating about 10 to 12,000 a month in municipal tax revenues from that 3% VIG that the city gets. So you're talking 120 to 144,000 on one retail site, which is a little under what we had anticipated. But then again, we had projected having 2 by now, and we've only got 1. Other cultivation in play, and I have to keep it at that level just based upon real estate matters and deal-making issues. We have 3 operators still actively hunting in the city of Norwich to set up cultivation. And we have 2 operators on the retail side, still at play, still seeking a location. And I kind of wrap there, and I'll just sort of speed through the rest of this. Like I said earlier, we're engaged in a whole bunch of other stuff in a whole bunch of other different ways, whether it's the engagement platform, the YMCA effort to negotiate with DECD on the Community Challenge Grant, keeping a finger on the pulse of PEMA South, which is still underway, Uncas Sleeper supporting effort, and then of course the emergent matter with our friends at 40 Wisconsin and keeping that project alive, which had a call today, and things are still moving forward. And then when we're done with our day job, the Antrim River floods, and you guys get that better than I do because you got that worse than I did. But we were able to, in the last week or so, roll out a business recovery micro grant effort in partnership with DECD and Sector for $5,000 per business, and that's where we're at right now. We've got that's up to 10 at the moment I stand here. We've got 10 folks that have filed for that $5,000 micro grant. I think we've got about 5 others there that can still file. It's just another way that we're leaning in and helping out. So what are we going to do in 24? We're going to do all this stuff. A lot of the same things I just talked about, just pushing them to fruition. And I've really talked about all of this, so I won't belabor this slide. What's my ask? Why am I here? What are we doing? Well, key considerations for this budget year. ARPA is going away, and we've been paying for the project costs of monitoring, technical assisting, and inspecting and bookkeeping and accounting for all of those projects that I described earlier through fees that we scored off ARPA. So we're going to be down by 260 on ARPA. It goes to 0 in September of 2024. Because of all the money that's going to be flowing through, we have to have a federal and state single audit this next fiscal year. And so our audit costs are going to go up by $16,000. All that work that we do on the community investment fund without an actual grant writer or dedicated staff, that's just us doing more work harder. And you know, if I use the last waterfront grant, which cost about $8,000, using our ARPA guy to write it, and just some of the other time that we had to expend on it, talking about $12,000 in extra work there. I didn't belabor the foundry, but we are 100% occupied on any office that's closed off. All the private offices. The landlord put glass cubes up on the second floor where there used to be 8 cubicles, and now they're all sold. That took about a month and a half, and they're all sold out. So we're looking at a capital improvement to do that same work downstairs. $8K for the glass cubes, $8K for Wi-Fi improvements, $8K for some high-tech whiteboards. This is wish list stuff. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that's optimally we do all those things. That's another $24K. And then finally, we don't have a marketing capacity in the city. And every year, and just please understand, I'm not saying this just to you folks. I say this to the city council and the mayor as well when it comes to this time of year. We've got to figure out a way to collaborate and or resource the ability to have a marketing voice that touches NPU, the city, and CDC all at the same time. And you guys have a CIO and you have Simone, but that's your asset. And they've been extremely helpful to us. But I think there's probably another wedge that we could, put in there to be a little more better. To make a marketing video for all of the city of Norwich, for example. So if you tack up all of that, the revenue loss is 260. And I apologize for this. UFRS is military speak, unfunded requirements. When you talk to your boss each year, you say, well, boss, you told me to do 12 things and you funded me for one of them. And you lay out for him your unfunded requirements, your UFRS. Our UFRS are about 77K. If I'm being a pig up here right now and you cut that in half, it's still about 38K that are things that we have to audit. We have to audit. We have to pay for a more robust and capable audit firm to do the kind of things we got to do, just as one example. And so, as straightforward as I can be, you can see right here that, first of all, which should have been the first slide, I thank you all very much for supporting this organization and all that we do and all that I just told you that we do. And I acknowledge that you all have bumped it up each year, year over year, since I've been here. But in light of the things that I just pointed out to you, I'm begging you for another 15,000. 265 is the ask. And you can see that I'm also asking the city of Norwich to go up by 50,000 from the 200 they gave us last year to 250. In other words, maybe more simply put, I'm asking the city to catch up with you guys and making a humble request for an extra 15K from this side of the equation. That's what I got for you, and I have all the time in the world because we're 6th on the Commission on the City Plan agenda, so I don't need to be over there till about 8:30. So to take your questions.
Well, that's fabulous, Kevin. I want to thank you for all you're doing for the city. It's a tremendous amount. And well, I've lived here for over 30 years, but it just seems like in the last 10 years, things have really started to take off, particularly in the last 5. So I don't know if there's anything that changed dramatically in the last 10 years, or the last 5 years, or it just sort of all came together all of a sudden.
Well, I'll start at the end of your point, and maybe we can work our way backwards. Kind of to the team sport thing that I mentioned early on. Things are moving the right way when things start moving organically and on their own. And that's happening. We're getting interest in properties on Main Street that we're not, as NCDC, we're not going out and hunting it or chasing it or even making the connection. So some things are happening just on their own because of the change. And it's extremely motivating when you have someone ask for an office call to sit down in the Foundry and say to you, hey, things are moving. So we want to talk to you about X, Y, or Z property or X, Y, or Z thing. And that has happened. That growth that you say you've seen over 10 or 5 years, I can only speak to the last couple of years. It's happening on its own.
Yeah, well, we got all these projects years ago that sort of got talked about and then they just never happened. And that went on for 20 years. And so there was an article in the paper the other day about the 2 fellows that bought the 3 properties on Lower Broadway. And in the comments section, you get all the usual people that like to
Right.
vent their spleen,
Right.
which drives me insane. So then I chimed in with something a little bit more positive. And people kind of like barked at that, but they didn't really attack me, which is fine. But it's just some of the attitude is again, just people like to complain, but some of it is people that have just seen project after project never get off the ground in this town. But now it's happening. It's really fantastic to see.
And I have to admit it, right? None of us can look away from the fact that the federal government poured billions of dollars of ARPA money out the door, and 28 million of that landed in Norwich, Connecticut. Now, I can't speak to all 28 million of it, but what I can say is the money that we got to execute on NCDC, we're making sure that we execute on it and that it doesn't get frittered away and that it keeps the momentum on some of these things that might have what's happening.
So that park that was talked about in the article, and I looked it up and it was fabulous, but is that gonna happen whether Fairhaven?
Right, it's right next to the fair.
Whether that happened, did that happen in conjunction with that? Because it sounded like that all happened together.
Convergence. So we've been running down parallel paths and let's just call it from jump. Without funding, that is not going to come together. This is 100% only going to happen if we can succeed in putting together a compelling narrative for the state of Connecticut under this CIF 2030 grant possibility. But it's the perfect project. It rings all the right bells, right? It's got outdoor space, it's got affordable housing, it's in the downtown, which connects to transit-oriented development where people can walk, bike, get on a seat bus, maybe one day in 10 years, walk over to a train station. It is 100% the type of project they're looking for. We're on the right path. That's what we're doing.
Well, that's great. So, anybody have any comments? Kevin? Go ahead. You're up.
Thank you. I don't know, I just was thinking, and I really don't know what's happening with Norwich Hospital property, if anything. I had a lot of experience with the ice rink. I was involved in getting their food being built and then managing the authority for 17 years. And we didn't do as well operating as we hoped. The city got tired of the red ink. We put together an RFP. We had the biggest problem was the Killer Road was going to be $1 million fix. We put together an RFP, and to our pleasant surprise, we got 3 really great offers. And one of them, a group from Bridgeport, they ended up putting in approximately a little over $1.5 million. Completely renovated the facility for a 15-year lease with a 15-year option. And good things are happening over there. The New York Rangers are sponsoring the youth hockey and to skate and giving the kids uniforms, everything except the mouth guard and neck guard. So I'm not sure if anything like that would relate to development potential at the Norwich Hospital site. But, you know, when I think about the open land there and, you know, the view of the river, I mean, it could be, if you did, I'd hate to see it all chopped up into residential, and I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world if it was done up. But it just makes me wonder if it could be, you know, like another Big E or something over there, an exposition center or fairground combined, you know.
So I think, you know, as you're asking the question or making that statement that there's 2 parcels adjacent, that same.
Yeah, there's 80 acres in Norwich, right? And there's a bigger part that's Preston.
Right. And
We can work with Preston, I assume.
not my authority to say, but I'm pretty certain the Preston Redevelopment Agency has made it pretty clear to the press recently that Preston cleanup is close to being done.
Oh, good.
And the clock will start for the EPA to start doing the certifications of that cleanup. And the property could convey back to the tribe as soon as October, November of this year. At which point the clock starts on actual development on the Preston part. And so this Norwich State Hospital properties is all of a sudden a whole lot more interesting. Which is why the application to CIF for a planning grant for it is so important, so that we can ask ourselves these questions that you're asking right now and make sure that.
You never know what's out there until you put an RFP up. That's really what I was thinking. There could be nothing out there, but there could be something fantastic like what we found with the rink.
Whatever it is, I can't imagine it's not gonna, you know, be a knock-on effect of whatever happens over on the Preston side.
Yeah, Michael, for what it's worth, our economic development committee has been focused significantly on the Mohegan Tribe development of the Preston Norwich Hospital site, and trying to work with them. We've met with the head of the Preston Redevelopment Agency. Chris has had discussions with them, further discussions with them. We think there's possibility that we might be able to provide power to that site. It's in dispute. I mean, I think because Eversource has a claim on it too.
Well, it's been served by Eversource, it's been served by North Punk Utilities, and it's been served by their own generation on site.
Yeah.
So they've had 3 power suppliers at that site. All have the ability to serve in the future.
But I mean, we've had a lot of discussions, and it's still very early. I mean, the cleanup isn't done yet. So, and the tribe, to the best of my knowledge, and you might know better, but to the best of my knowledge, the tribe did not said, well, we've decided what we're going to do, and it's X, Y, and Z. It's still, they want to do something. It's going to be some sort of an attraction. It looks like it's not going to be a casino. It's going to be something for the general public. But until we know more, we're not going to be able to do anything, but we're very engaged with them, and we're hoping to somehow work with them as well we can. Separate from that, just a comment on your presentation. You know, we had 2 great awards and presentations by the St. Vincent de Paul and by the historic group. And And I think it's a terrific program that we have because it ends up not really costing us any money. We're able to utilize our a tax on electric power. And rather than pay that into the state, we're able to give it to some local organizations. And St. Vincent de Paul and the historic group are both great organizations, and they help a lot of people. That's really important. We're a public entity, we're public utilities. Situation with you is a little bit different, I think, because we're also in the business of selling utilities, and you're in the business of creating demand. And I think the fact that all of this activity is taking place, or is potentially going to take place in the future, adds up to increased demand for us for utilities. And I think that's something that really supports the idea of us providing financial assistance to NCDC, because it's effectively an investment on our part in growth and demand. And so, I mean, I mean, what I don't know if it's a magic amount, whether it's $1 or 15,000 or 15 million. I don't. Well, it's not going to be 15 million. But you know, I think we have to think in terms of this is not simply a request for some money for a good purpose. This is a request for some money that's going to pay off to us in the future.
Yeah, we will be going to great depth as part of the February 6th budget meeting. That's when we do the admin portion, which includes economic development. So we'll be talking the budget side of this request on February 6th. And in the February and March board meetings, we'll have the ability to discuss this further and come up with a number that works for the board and hopefully works for NCDC as well.
Hey, real quick, Kevin, I saw Thayer Marine up there on one of the lists. What's going on with them?
So,
Welcome aboard.
sorry,
Well, let me minutes reflect. Thank you.
I'll get the address number wrong. I think it's 26 Falls Ave.
Yeah,
Maybe 14 Falls Ave.
something like that. So is that down the road?
It is.
Okay.
As you're heading towards the wastewater treatment plant, it's on your left.
Yeah.
And then through the American Rescue Plan, we've been able to help them rehab that building. The city conveyed it some time ago. They rehabbed it, and now it's an amazing showroom space for that. Because, you know, I'll get all the numbers wrong. Some of you guys might, some of you folks might know better than me, but their sales through COVID and post-COVID is really skyrocketing. So it's giving them extra showroom space. And then I think they're using it for some, you know, taking the boats and equipment and engines out of storage and putting them into action.
That's the old water division shop down there.
Okay, all right.
And we haven't used that more than 30 years.
Okay.
And so it's nice that it's being used for something productive.
Yeah, I used to know all them years ago. We had a boat, still have it. We don't use it anymore. We had a boat. So I got to know the Thayers very well. And it was a great family, you know, Dick, Richard, and Richie. And I think Dick's passed now and his wife, but I haven't been down there in years, but I'm glad to see that they stayed. They were upset when they put the bus terminal in, they took the leave and all that. They decided to stay. So I'm glad that they did in their expanding term. So that's good. That's great. And what else did I think? Oh, and the marina, the new owners, is that going well with these new people?
It is. Let's call it what it is. The CIF grant application we turned in December, in partnership with them, is critical to their ability to really take off. If we don't win the grant, they got some hard work ahead of them, but they're fully committed. And some of you probably heard me say this before. They didn't come to town toting bags full of cash and say, we're going to build, you know, 36 luxury condos on the marina. They came to town with a skid steer and paintbrushes, and they've been down there themselves pulling anchors up from the old tent that used to go on the pad and putting them in themselves and painting. I mean, they are by experience in the construction business.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're good partners. They're legitimate. They're straightforward, straight shooters, and they're invested.
Nice. That was good to see that. They're really worried that the place was just gonna fall into ruin, you know, that no one took care of it, so that was good.
Well, that's the other factor. I mean, the previous operators were, a negative force.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they just didn't care. Okay, are there any further questions or comments for Kevin?
My only comment, just to top off what I was talking about before about the Norwich Hospital properties. You know, when we think about, how many acres is that altogether, please?
40 on the large side and 12 on the other side, I think.
So we got 80 at Norwich.
I'm missing a couple of parcels, two primaries, 12 on the riverside and 40 up
I
there.
thought Preston was only in Norwich.
West Preston got 300.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So, you know, if you look at Norwich and Preston, it might be almost 400 acres. Yeah. Is there another site like that in the state on the water that could be developed?
Probably not.
I don't think so, that I know of. I mean,
Take away the water, it's Ockham Industrial Center.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
What part?
That's the Business Park North. That's if you take it away from the
Size
water.
and scope, yeah.
Size and scope.
It's not on the water.
Right.
You know, I mean, there is that, I mean, there's rail going by there. You could put in a station, you could put in dockage for a boat. You know, you could have that combination of, rail and boat and,
Yeah.
ground transportation. I mean, it's got unbelievable potential when you think about it like that. There's nothing else like it around.
Like there is a master plan created by the Preston River Walk-in and Mohegan Tribe. And so they are kind of fixed as the type of stuff that can go in there. And it's entertainment, it's hotel, it's glamping, it's some small residential. So it's kind of a package that's going in. And that's kind of the master plan they have to stick to. So.
Yeah, the real question is for us, how does that impact the Norwich side?
And the Norwich doesn't have those restrictions. Norwich side.
That's still pretty impressive having 80 acres right there too. There isn't many sites like that.
I mean, the thing you gotta keep in mind though, the Norwich sites, I believe, are both enterprise zones. I'm not sure if that's the case with both of them, but at least one is. They're privately owned right now, and they are way less buildable than the Preston site.
The Norwich land is privately owned?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
The city did not take on the option to purchase like Preston did.
Is there a backer yet for the Preston Riverwalk?
We haven't heard of a development partner yet. Not to say that it's not going on. We're not sitting at that table, Bill, but when it becomes public, we will know, hopefully first, if not, right there with them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin, good luck at meeting number 2.
Yeah, it's telling them on the way.
And Kevin, I will share the presentation with Commissioner Rosita because it was nice to get everyone time. We had an NFA tonight that was a requirement on this part.
All right, moving on, we've got the update on the storm and flood response. We have record flooding on the Inlet River. We made the national news. However, NPU had some major issues. So, Chris?
All right, well, first of all, we had a major windstorm in December that was almost as large as the hurricanes we had in 2012, 11, and 12. So major storm. Get out of that, and next thing you know, we have another wind event predicted. And that wind event, we looked at the forecast for the flood, and we were not even going to hit minor flood stage in that storm, as predicted the day before that storm. And so, lo and behold, the significant snow melt was not taken into account north of Norwich. And the forecasters were way off. We had multiple meetings with the forecasters throughout the week, and they were not expecting anything near this. So the flooding, this is a picture of our Bean Hill substation. And
where exactly is that?
it's across the river from Dixie Donuts. So it's at the base that you drive in behind Nordson, the old Plaspac, and that's the access. Right, so then if you look at this, the lines come up behind World Gym and they come out of World Gym, and that's what they feed the business park and a good section of Norwich Town in that area of the city. So
what is that right by Dixie Donuts?
that is gas regulator
Oh,
station.
that's, oh, okay.
So that gas regulator station is one of our 5 gate stations, owned and operated by Enbridge, that we get, gas from the pipeline. That system was also shut down that day because of the flood. That's actually in a floodway, and there was water flowing through, not just rising up to, but flowing through that station. That had to be shut down for safety reasons, but because it was so warm, and we also had power outages, we had really no big use of natural gas during the flood parts. And when the flood waters recede, we were able to get it back online, and we had no interruptions or concerns. And Barry Ellison and his crew were watching that closely during the entire storm. But once again, we had people prepared and ready, even though it was only going to be a minor flood, and this is the flood we received. The next slide. So when you saw we lost 5,000 customers, it was because we actually got leakage inside the substation. This is inside of the basement of our substation, and you can see the water's rising. We also had water on the first floor coming through the walls of the substation and entering into the first floor. Because of that, if everything got wet when it was energized, that would have arced, and that would have caused a catastrophic condition. We were able to de-energize and wait it out. And fortunately, the dam held and we did not have any additional flooding, but this is what it looked like inside a substation. And everyone knows that electric and water don't usually mix.
What is the depth right there? Oh,
At least like, what, 3 feet?
in the basement?
Well, they got it pumped down. I don't know.
Yeah. Jeff, you know what that depth was down in the basement?
I don't know exactly, Chris, but I'd say 3 feet is a good estimate of the water you're looking at right there.
So,
Is there any damage?
nothing permanent though.
Yeah, because that basement's about 12 feet total. When you look down in there, it's pretty deep.
so the water level outside is at least this low, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, if you go back one,
Oh.
so that's the outside walls of the substation. That's a basement in there. So if there's water coming in that high, and it was leaking through cracks in the foundation wall onto the first floor as well. So, very high.
Some of it comes in around the electrical conduits as well. They're sealed, but they still leak a little bit. It's basically like a boat.
Do we have pumps in there to pump out water?
We have multiple pumps, and we brought in additional pumps during the storm to help out. And we had people in there who were basically on an island inside the river, essentially, manning those pumps and keeping the substation safe.
How close is the Antic?
So if you look, the bank of the Yannick is probably about, it's normally about 10 feet from the inside to the right of that building. It's usually about 10, maybe 10 or 12 feet away. And they came on all the way on the other side.
A good place for that.
Yep. And you see down there, it looks like almost like a canal going straight into the picture. That's the access road where we get in from Plaspac. Nordson.
You go.
So that's the road, and the bucket truck is actually sitting on a high point in that road. So it's only up halfway up the wheels of the truck, but if you drove over a foot or two, it would be, well over the floorboards. Okay. So this here is our switch yard, and if we were going to take that switch out, that station out manually, that's where we would be taking in operating switches inside there. So. That's once again, not the easiest work environment that we have. And when we look at the levels of the Yannick, it's the highest we've seen since 1982, and we're within a half of a foot of that 1982 level. And then that number was also achieved in 38 hurricane. So this, you know, we were within a half a foot of the 38 hurricane and the 82 floods.
Sorry.
All right, so if you ordered a Domino's pizza that day, this is the owner of Domino's or the manager of Domino's not having a very good day. So this is, you know, down in Norristown, and they had floodproof somewhat this building, but apparently the other side of Domino's was not floodproof, and they found out the hard way, and he had to get rescued by the fire department. Yeah. So in addition to this record flooding, there was an issue at the Fitchfield Dam. This is the dam just below the Bosra Town Hall. And the dam is a privately owned dam. There are no inundation records or emergency action plans for this dam. And when you look at all of our dams that are high hazard, we have that for all that. So there's automatic a playbook what happens when that starts flooding. There's no playbook for this. It's not in the city of Norwich, and we don't have any jurisdiction over it. So immediately, Dennis and the state DEEP all got involved. DEEP Dam Safety was up there, and if you watch the news, you can see Chuck Lee on there, you know, giving reports daily on this dam. The first thing they did to fix the leaks was to put a cofferdam in. Those are those big white sandbags. And what they did was they were trying to take pressure off the dam and also seal the leakage of the dam. The National Weather Service heard there was dam leaking, and they immediately said breach. So there were emergency alarms going out from the National Weather Service, not from local emergency management, saying that that dam had breached earlier in the day. Chris Riley was the PIO, Public Information Officer for the city, and he was working closely with the state group that does Everbridge and also a reverse cell phone network to get the right message out and communicate the message. In here in the EOC, we had fire, police, emergency management. Everyone was working together and came up with the evacuation plan. Our GIS groups, Dave Poor and his team did a great job of mapping out what would have to be evacuated. And that evacuation went out that morning to evacuate this area because of cautionary concerns of this dam. Those, the cofferdam was only put in after the flood, not before. So, you know, it was a very stressful moment in here. And it's the first time that that reverse, you know, cell phone emergency message was used. So we put a polygon in the system, we drew a map on the map. They sent it out, and within a half-mile buffer of that, anyone who drove into that area got the notice. It wasn't just if you lived there, but if you drove in, your phone would go off and you'd be noticed. So somebody's driving down to Dixie Donuts, they would have got, oh, you're in an emergency evacuation zone, get out. So
Just as an FYI, there's a story going around town, which I think might be true, is that the owner of the dam offered to convey it to the state for nothing. And they refused to take it because they said they wanted him to pay $3.5 million in addition to conveying the dam.
Well, all I can tell you is that, you know, he's been underwater, Seymour has been for
Was that
20 years. And, you know, the state has a lot of enforcement tools. If this was such a high hazard dam, which it is, and they were so concerned about it, they have so many enforcement tools that they could have used. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
But, you know, to Seymour's credit, I mean, why not to credit, but, I mean, he's wrong. I mean, I don't think anybody at that news conference could have paid, you know, improvements to the dam to correct the problem with the dam. And I don't think anybody, I mean, this needs some, you know, the dam owner needs help. Let's face it, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But, you know, the fact that he's been underwater for so many years and they never pursued it is not right either. Now, let me ask you about it. So I heard earlier that a dam had breached, and I thought that might have been a dam behind the Turner Stanton Mill, or?
well, the alarm went out that this dam had breached.
Oh, is that what it was?
So that was from the National Weather Service without the proper local information.
Oh, wow.
You know, the dam is dam is leaking. People are then, it must be going over the top. Oh, it must be imminently failing. Boom, dam breach. The message goes out to the National Weather Service. People in this room and working with dam safety, DEEP, even the state police, all, came up with the right message and the right terminology.
So we were very careful not to reference it as Norwich facility or the NDU asset. We were also very careful to say it was breached, it was compromised. We didn't say.
But we said it was compromised, not breached.
Compromised.
Leaked and
We were very careful about it. But the river itself was seeing historic flow.
I didn't know if the Upper Falls Dam had reached, well, I thought there might be one behind the old Turner Camp Mill. Because, I didn't think that Mitchell Dam reached one.
But this is the one that was referred to that day, the only one that was of major concern.
I think this will probably get people on their toes and get something done here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the attention this received, Senators Blumenthal and Murphy were both down. The governor was down. Katie Dykes, Commissioner of DEEP, was down. We were working on calls with Department of Health, Lori Matthew. We had Nisha Patel. We had Graham Stevens. All were engaging in communication about this dam.
Is there any potential for hydroelectric power here? That's the other thing.
The Yantic is a river that flashes. It's not a good continual steady flow. Because we could also look at, we could look at Uncas Leap as in other areas where we could potentially do it in Norwich even. But when we look at the viability of the Yantic River, it's not a good enough continual flow. You can walk across that, in the summer, and it usually flashes and it comes down quick. Shetucket grows slow and comes down slow. So this room, the other side of this curtain, and those largely occupied the back here, was opened as the emergency operations center. We opened it up that evening or the night before as as it may have to be staffed. And that morning we made the determination, as we're getting the flooding and not the wind event, we thought we'd be using it for managing down power lines. The biggest outage we had due to power lines was somebody took a corner on Briar Hill and took a pole out, had nothing to do with the storm. We had a couple of minor outages during the night. We lost a big, a pole that had nothing to do with storm that morning. So we were prepared more for a wind event. We had the EOC stood up. We brought everybody in early that morning, and we started working with all of the appropriate teams. As soon as we said we're going to have an evacuation, we brought in Red Cross, and Red Cross runs a shelter at the school, at Kelly School. So they opened up the shelter. I think they might have had about 15 or 16 people who used that shelter that day. But the majority of people, evacuated and went to either, some family member or some other place. And it also wasn't extremely cold, so it wasn't people were really as concerned. So our biggest concern was the Bean Hill Station. And we don't know how bad that river would have gone if that dam had breached. And that dam is stable, but it's not permanently stable yet. So there's still a lot to go there. So we got to clear, anytime there's a rain event, we got to closely make sure we're monitoring that dam. And we'll work with the fire chief, emergency management, and all those folks to make sure we're monitoring it correctly, as well as having a relationship with the town of Basra, First Selectman Glenn Bianca, and Tom Lane, the fire chief up there. So we've reviewed all of our internal plans, and the first thing we did, and between Wednesday, when we had the major flooding, there was a potential on Saturday we're going to have the same event. So we found a whole bunch of holes. We sealed holes we didn't know were there. We did a lot of drain to get additional draining from the upper floor to the lower floor to minimize where water could be standing inside the substation. So a lot of work was done just quickly to make that happen. We brought in additional pumps just in case we needed them, and we were ready for the worst on Saturday morning. We had specific meteorology reports from Dennis. They had their own state meteorologist. He was doing detailed forecasts here. We were on webinars with the National Weather Service, who had people doing specific forecast here. Going into Saturday morning, they were expecting minor to moderate flooding. And so it didn't look like it was going to be as bad as a major flood on Wednesday, but that was based on 2-inch rainfall. As we're getting closer and later in the day, that forecast moved up to 2.5 inches. And if we hit 3 inches, we would have had more flooding than we had on Wednesday. When you look how close we were, Montville had over 3 inches. 5 miles down the road, they had the flood that if they would have shifted 5 miles, we would have had a worse flood on Saturday than we had on Wednesday.
How did it impact Holyoke Island and the sewer plant?
So if you look down there at the transportation center, there's a dip, right, between the transportation center and the Thayers.
Yeah.
And there was probably about 4 feet of water in there at the peak of the storm. We took everybody off of the island when that happened.
Yeah.
And evacuated all our personnel out and waited for the storm out. There was a contractor who was working for Nickerson and tried to drive through the floodwaters. His car was there in the middle of the storm. He got out, but the car stayed, and it was completely submerged.
Wow.
So, fortunately, we were okay with everything down the plant.
I guess it's kind of an academic question, but if we had somehow managed to upgrade all of the substations to 34.5 capacity, 34.5 is the right number, yeah. Would it be possible to shut down this station and still provide power to all of the city? In other words, would the capacity be greater?
So the problem is those feeders are fed from that substation. So if we lost the transmission line to it, we could feed it. But if we lost the bus, which we did,
Okay.
not necessarily so. But we're looking at other things to help do that. Back in June of last year, we got a $650,000 grant to plan and design the floodproofing of that station. That was proactive. We hadn't had a flood since 1982 that bad. It was a proactive thing, but we're looking at, there was a resiliency grants out there. Hey, let's do what we can to protect that substation. The money was granted, but we still haven't gotten the ability. We just got the application to start spending, not the ability to, but the application to start spending this week. So it takes a long time from when you start to finish. We have an engineering firm, Jacobs, that's ready to go and design this. We've been in contact with them right through the storm. We have preliminary estimates of what it would take to weatherproof the station and what it's going to take to move the station. And that's what we're looking at next. And there's a benefit of moving it completely, and there's a benefit of just of just making it storm-proof.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are now, and hopefully, Commissioner Dykes had talked in the press conference about giving us this resiliency money, but we still haven't had the ability to spend it. It's kind of like the natural gas grant that we got last year for $10 million, and we still got the big check. And I think Barry is just able to go out and start spending it now. But it takes a long time for some of these programs. And all brand new people administering it, unfortunately for DEEP, so.
So when you say moving, you don't visit any moving building, you build a new building.
Build a new building and then transfer over.
All the equipment?
Yeah, well, the majority of equipment was built in the 80s. So, or not in the 80s, in the 60s rather. So 60s vintage equipment, we've been upgrading it. It's really going to be a brand new station. That could be up to $40 million. So it's not cheap. And when you're looking at what we need to do for, electric vehicles, and we're talking about that big number, it's substations like this at $40 million a pop that are why that number is very large, in addition to all the individual transformers.
Would you keep it there, Chris?
No.
You moved it somewhere else.
Yes,
It was originally started here, someone said in the 40s, and it's been around for a long time.
I think it was upgraded in the 60s, and then
But it's usually located in the 40s.
So how much flex chip did you buy for $650,000?
You don't think that discussion wasn't going on in this building?
It works for a rowboat with a screen door in it. I mean, come on.
We just need a, The problem is that water will go in and percolate up through the ground and event this time.
That's what happened in my basement, because we through the.
Yeah, so it's building bud dikes, it's putting in large pumps, there's a lot to it.
And wherever you move it to, you gotta be able to connect to the grid, right, to the wiring and
Yeah,
so forth.
we have a lot of options here, Bob, because, as you go up the hill into the business park, that's where the transmission line goes. You go the other way up Dimes, through Dime Savings Bank
Yep.
and up into the Yannick Lane area, and there's 2 transmission lines that go through that area. Now, if we are to build a new substation, we would make this a loop feed system. Right now, we have a radial feed coming off of that station, and we cannot get transmission dollars back to us. If you build a loop feed station, which is not that much harder to do.
You gotta help me out. What are we talking about?
So,
What's loop feed?
well, it's 1 feed into the substation. If you put 2 taps out and you run it through the substation, you can bypass the substation easily. That becomes a bulk energy system substation, and you get return on your transmission dollars.
Okay.
So you build that, and you're getting a return every year on the substation. We only get that in 1 of our 3 substations right now. So it's 10th Street. The other, Dudley. The other 2, we don't get that. So there's a return as well as, which we don't normally get on our infrastructure. And the one thing I don't think I can, say enough of is the city cooperation was the best I've ever seen. And we had an unbelievable team here supporting the EOC and supporting all of the flooding events outside. So we had gas, electric, substation mechanics, all working together to do, to get us through. When we had to get additional pumps in, we were driving a payloader in because it's a high body vehicle. So, it was, dangerous work. And, everyone who stayed and, stayed on those islands and helped manage this whole thing did an unbelievably great job last week.
That's it.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. We didn't lose power where I was, so I was happy about that. And when I went to work in the morning, I go down by where a retire is. And there was people with orange cones out and vehicles and very official looking. There was a guy, they were from, Live Eye 3 camera, and there was no water. So I said, well, it either happened already or they're expecting it to happen. And apparently it happened later on in the day.
It happened late.
They were already waiting. They got the guys got the camera ready to go, and holy cow. So the guy that owns Domino's, the guy across the street got flooded several times, and he finally just gave up and tore the building down, right?
Yeah,
So
there was grants to help.
he's still making pizzas down there. I think he's like below river level where he is, basically.
And that's one of those things where Kevin was talking about he's working on some of these small micro grants mitigation. So the city is looking at getting money to relocate or flood proof some of these, and also some of the mitigation efforts. So, or just, clean up and repair. So there are FEMA dollars coming in. Right now, we look at our storm expenditures. We didn't spend that much. We had internal people, and all of the things that we did were not covered by, not FEMA reportable. We might have seen about $14,000 worth of extra expenses that we could be FEMA reimbursed. When you roll all that up, it's not going to probably be enough to get any FEMA dollars coming in. But some of these homeowners are at least going to go down the path of trying to get some of that, homeowners or business owners trying to get money back. Yeah, Irene's was shut down. They had water in their basement. There was, quite a few in that general area had some significant damage.
Yeah, wow.
And Irene's is normally one of our storm food preparers. So Mary Lou is the expert on that. She does logistics for the EOC, and you had to go to Plan B and Plan C, I think.
We went to a lot of plans.
Domino's and Irene's were out.
And the mall did not go underwater, but.
As close as could be. The water was hitting the bridge.
Yeah.
The whole parking lot all around was completely, surrounded. So the buildings were an island, and, there was a lot of concern. I mean, if you're Stop and Shop or, the gym or,
Something. All right, well, thank you, Chris, and thank you for all your efforts, and NPU for all your efforts. Thank you.
we have a great team here.
All right, moving on. Executive session, we have things to talk about, so I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any comment on moving into executive session? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, all those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, we're in executive session. Who would you like to stick around?
All right, so for this one here, Jeff, Steve, and Simone, if you can stay just for the record keeping.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye. You're welcome, kids.
You guys look sad that we're leaving.
Oh, yeah.